Recording here, just record my part of the session, and we'll kind of go from there. So today, what we wanted to talk about and present on is the process of creating assignments, and that includes Google assignments and all the other things that you can do in Schoology with assignments. And so, you know, there's not a whole lot to it. So today's session will be a little bit shorter than some of the other ones that we've done. But I do want to kind of go through some things, go through some settings and some best practices. And then whatever questions you have at the end, we'll stop the recording, and then you can feel free to ask those questions at the end. So let's get started. If you don't mind, I'll share my screen here. And there we go. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to a class that I have in Schoology, and the basic process is this. As you probably remember, you can either click on add materials and choose add assignment, and you can also, if you want to put it in a particular place, you can hover over the dividing lines and click on the dashed line and choose add assignment there. Right, but either one of those is going to bring you to this screen, which is going to ask you to do some basic things. So it's going to ask you to, for instance, give a title to your assignment. So we'll just call this CER number 1 for now. Let's say we have a claim evidence reasoning assignment, and we want to give the instructions for that assignment in the description. Now, note that the description will actually show up on your Schoology page. So if it's something that's extensive, you may want to consider putting that into a Google Doc and attaching that Google Doc as opposed to putting all of the instructions right here on the page. But we'll start this way. So I'll just throw some instructions in here. Okay, so you know, you have some of the basic editing tools. You can insert pictures or diagrams. You could put links. You could put videos in here as well. All of those things can go into the description. Now, keep in mind that an assignment is really a place for students to turn in their work. It's kind of like a Dropbox or like the turn-in bin that you may have on the side of your classroom or in the back or whatever. And so it's a place for them to submit things. What you do from there is really up to you. All right, so I want to start with just a standard assignment. Let's say we just want students to, you know, to write their paragraph, turn it in, and then they're good. Okay. Now, in addition to those instructions that I just added, and you know, maybe a picture or a YouTube video or something like that, there are buttons along the bottom that allow me to attach files, put links in there, get resources from my resource folder. I could even add an audio or a video recording to, you know, basically summarize the instructions for students, or to give maybe a, you know, a video explanation of what I really want them to do. All right. And so you have those options as well. And the important thing about that is a couple of these are options for students as well. For instance, you could give them an assignment in which they give you an audio or a video recording as their response. So they don't necessarily have to type it. They could speak it, or they could act it out in a video or something like that. Okay, so they will have a button that looks like this as well, in addition to the file. And I'll show you that in just a little bit. Now, we're going to stay away from this button for now. And we talked about this button last week. So if you want to check that out, that's on the same Google Sheet using Kami with assignments. But let's move on to the scale or the rubric. All right, here's one of the big strengths of Schoology, and that's the ability to attach a rubric to assignments and to assessment questions. So if I come in here by default, it is set to a numeric grade. And that means that I, as the teacher, when I go to grade student assignments, I go in and I just give it a number somewhere between 0 and 100. All right. I can also choose the A plus or minus scale. So I would go in and I'd give them an A plus, A minus, B plus, B minus, just a flat out C or whatever. And that will equate to a number of points for them, depending on how you have that set up in your course. So those are two options. Another option is to use a rubric that you've already created for another assignment or another assessment. All right. So for instance, I could choose proficiency rubric number 1, and I can preview that by clicking the little button. And you see that I have just one criterion, level of proficiency, and the scores are 4, 3, 2, and 1. And I have a little description here that I've put, I've added to each one of those little point totals. All right, so we can do that. Or right here within this assignment, we could create a new rubric. All right, so you could come in here, you could change the criterion to something that you want to grade, whether it's something like conventions or grammar, or in my case, use of scientific knowledge and things like that. All right, so you could come in here, you can add a certain number of points, you could add levels to your scale and things like that. And then when you go in to grade the assignment, you come in and you click on one of these for each criterion, in which case there's only one here, and the student gets that many points for that particular criterion. And you can add criteria as well, right? You can add as many as you want. And notice that that makes the point total change as well, all right? Now, as I mentioned, this is one of the strengths of Schoology, but even more powerful than just creating things on your own is the fact that you can go into the standards, depending on what you teach and what your standards are. You can go in and you can find particular standards for the things that you are that you're trying to reinforce in students. So you could go into, for instance, one of the literacy standards, and you could pick one of those. And the nice thing about that is when you select one of those learning objectives and you add it, it will go ahead and write out the objective here, right, the standard. And then you can still use each one of these levels, each one of these descriptors to really hone in on one aspect of that standard that you want to grade students based on, right? Once you add a standard, just note you can't change the wording of it. So if you add something from Common Core, or you come in here and you go back to browse, let's go back to learning objectives. This would be in a science class that I was teaching. So I'd go into high school life sciences. I might pick the structure and function learning objective. And so that's part of it too. And notice I've got excellent, good, satisfactory, and needs improvement for both of these, which again, the more specific you can get with each one of these descriptors, the better off students are going to be and the better feedback that's going to be for students. Okay. So, again, you can pick certain aspects of the standard and decide which of those, if a student achieves it, will give them a good grade. So let's say I'll call this my Science 1 rubric, and I create it. Oops, and I didn't give a description here. Let's just call this 2 for now. Okay. And so when I go to grade my assignment, I will see that rubric and I'll be able to click on each one of those and give verbal feedback to students on each one of those criteria as well, which is really nice. Notice also it changed the number of points that the assignment was worth, and I have to leave it at that. Otherwise, I need to go back in and change the rubric so that it reflects the number of points that the students are going to earn. And then from there, things are pretty simple and self-explanatory. I need to pick a grading category. Let's call it a formative assessment. Pick the marking period and stuff like that. And I'm in a course, just so you know, I'm in a course that has, looks like 6 different sections all linked together. And so if I give an assignment, I don't necessarily have to have the same settings for each one of those courses. So I can come down here and I can customize this. And let's say I only want to give it to my first hour, second hour, and my 6th hour. All right. Let's say 3rd and 5th hour, maybe they're not in the same spot, or maybe they don't need this assignment. And so I can just select those sections. And what this allows me to do is, for instance, set a due date for each one of these, okay? And as always, anytime you create a resource or a material like this in Schoology, you want to make sure if you have chosen certain sections, it still keeps everyone else selected. So even though I assign this for first hour, second hour, and sixth hour, because this button is still green, my third hour, fourth hour, fifth hour, and my advisory are still going to see this assignment. So I want to unselect that box. And in that case, now only my first, second, and sixth hours will see this, this assignment, okay? And they'll see that it's due at, on these dates and at these times, okay? And then you see that I've selected the learning objectives. I had selected one common core standard and an NGSS standard, and then I added my own to this. So it shows me what my learning objectives are that I've selected, so I can verify that and come back and check on that as well. I can also, just like any other material in Schoology, I can assign it individually. So if I wanted to, I could only assign it to Amy Gwiz, who's in my fifth hour. Okay, and notice that changed the availability. So I have to go back and adjust this and make sure that Amy sees that because she's been individually assigned. All right, the other thing I can do is I can select a certain group of students, and I've created these groups, and next week we can show you this. I've created a group for special accommodations, and so that group will also see this assignment in addition to Amy. Okay. Now, a couple other buttons that are down here. Let me just explain what they do. The submissions enabled, that's turned on by default. So that means students can turn things in. They'll see the submissions button. Grading statistics, that's disabled. I like to turn that on. And then the next one, which is comments enabled, I like to turn off. And the reason for that is sometimes students will actually come in and they'll think they're turning in their assignment, but they've actually only written it in the comment section. So I turn that off completely so that there's no confusion. And then if I want to, I can copy this exact assignment to some of my other courses. So let's say I want to put this in my chemistry first hour section. Okay. And I click create. So my assignment now appears. Notice again, it's got my description here. So all of my instructions are there. It shows all the criteria and all the standards that it covers. Gives me information like the fact that it's available for 2 sections, that it's available for 1 group and 1 other student, and it will show me that if I click on it. Shows me the due date and things like that, okay? It also, since I set a date, it's going to show up on my calendar, which again is something that's really beneficial for students, really helps them to stay organized because they will see all of the things that are put onto the calendar, not only in your course, but they'll see it throughout their calendar. All right, so this is a good way to help students learn how to use a calendar to stay organized. Now, before we move on and look at some other things about this assignment, I want to point out that while you may recognize that you could go over here and click view course as and pick one of your students to see what it looks like to them. So let's say I'm going to come over here. Let me go to fifth hour and find Amy Gwiz. All right, so if I click on her, I'm viewing the course as her. And what you'll notice is when I click on the assignment, I see the information. I see the rubric that I'm going to be graded by, right? But what I don't see, because I'm not Amy Gwiz, is the submission button, right? So you don't necessarily see everything as a student sees it when you view the course as a student, all right? So over here, if I was actually Amy Gwiz, I would see that there was a submissions button over here, all right? So just so you know what it looks like, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna leave my course and I'm gonna go to a different course where I'm a student. And I want to show you what that submission button looks like. So we need to imagine that now we're transforming ourselves into Amy, and now we're going to look at it and see it how Amy sees it. And in order to do that, I need to go to where I am I'm a student. Okay, so I'll go over to Amy's course. Amy, hopefully you don't mind that I'm in your course now. Forgot to ask you permission.
It's a good thing I like you, Bob.
So we'll go in here and I'm going to click on this assignment here. Again, the assignment icon is this one that has a blue bar at the top and a blue sidebar with a pencil on it. So I'll click Test Video Embed. And Amy's assignment, as you notice, has a video as part of the instructions. But over here, this is the button I was talking about. We didn't see it because we were not actually the student in the course that I was looking at. This is what a student actually sees. And you notice here's the comment box. And so we don't want to have any confusion about where you enter your answer. If I was doing this assignment, I wouldn't want students, or I wouldn't want to put it in the comment section because my teacher is not going to see it there. All right. What I do want to do is click up here on Submit Assignment. All right. Now, for a student, from a student's point of view, they see 3 tabs. They see Upload, which obviously means they could find a file on their drive or find a file that's saved to locally to their computer. They could create something which gives them a text box that they can type in, all right, with some of the normal editing tools. And they could get something from their resources. So if they had something that they prepared in advance and they saved it to their resources, which most students are not going to do at this point, they could upload it from here. But I want to go back to the upload section because here's that button that I mentioned before about the audio and video recording. I can submit according to the way this this assignment and all assignments are set up. I can click this button and I can choose to add an audio file or an audio and video file. All right, and that will bring up a player for me, a recorder, and I can submit that as my submission. All right. But for this one, again, I'm not sure what, I think this was just a sample assignment that Amy made. So I'll just turn in a little sentence here and notice now that I've started typing, I can save a draft if I want to come back to it later. And you want to impress upon students that they want to make sure that they hit submit. Otherwise, you don't see it as submitted. So I can come in here, I can click submit. And now I see my submission. Okay, and if I want to, I can come in here and I can resubmit my assignment. All right, now that I've resubmitted it, notice I've got 2 revisions now. Okay, so again, that's what the assignment looks like from the student's point of view. And again, that's a normal assignment. That's not including a Google Doc or anything like that. So let's go to that next. All right, so we'll go back to the course in which I'm the teacher, and let's do another assignment, but let's make it a Google assignment this time. All right, now, in order to use a Google assignment, it's really important that you are signed into your Google Drive. So one thing you want to make sure that you do is maybe go to your email or go to Google and make sure when you click on your profile picture that it only shows your Dearborn Schools account, because that could cause a lot of problems later on. If it doesn't show only your Dearborn Schools account, you want to sign out of all accounts and sign in with only your Dearborn Schools account, okay? And just a reminder, there's a second place where you can be logged in, and that's up here, all right, into the browser itself. And you'll see that if you're not using a Chromebook, because you're automatically signed into the browser on a Chromebook if you're using a Chromebook, all right? So you want to make sure that your account is also here, okay? Or at least not someone else's account or not your personal account, all right? So let's go back. Here's my, my course again. I'm signed into Google properly. I'm ready to go. And so I'll come up here to add materials. And actually I want to keep this at the top of my course, because if I click here, my assignment's going to go down to the bottom of my course, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to click right here to put it at the top. And I'm going to choose add assignment once again. So let's say I want to add a CER Google Drive assignment this time. Doesn't matter what I call it. And I could say, please add your work to the document and submit. All right, so just some generic instructions for now. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to this button that says Google Drive Assignments. And if you've used this before, Everything should look okay. You should see your Google Drive. You should see all the things that you expect to see when you open up your Google Drive in another tab. They're just listed in linear fashion here. And so what I can do is I can come in here and notice that some of the icons are actually grayed out. They're not available. So these happen to be Jamboard. So I can attach a Jamboard. I can attach Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides. All right. So let's just go with we'll put the Zoom HyperDoc in here. And I've selected that. I could view it. If I want to make sure it's the right one, I can click view and it'll show me. So I'll go ahead and attach it. And I notice here that it says this will create a copy of your file for each student. So this works just like Google Classroom used to work and still does, where you can basically give every kid their own document. They type on their own document and they have a little button to turn it back in so that they can submit it to you. All right. Again, you've got all the rest of the settings. Let's just say we're going to go down here. We're going to assign it to all students in all sections, and we click create. Oh, I forgot my grading category. Happens every time. So now I'll click create. And remember, I put it up here at the top because I clicked on this dashed line. So let's take a look at what that assignment looks like. All right, so across the top, I, as the teacher, see assignment. I see in progress. I can see if someone has opened the assignment, I can see where they're at on their document. But until they open the assignment, until they open that Google Doc, I'm not going to see any of their work. All right, so you can be pretty sure that when you click on in progress, if you see something that looks like this for a student, they have not actually done the assignment yet. They haven't even clicked on it to make it their own. All right, and then once they start to submit it, you'll see some of the assignments show up in the submissions area. All right, and you can toggle, if you have your sections linked like I do, you can toggle between the different sections of your course and go through and grade each one of them. And there are some filters here, like allows you to choose all the assignments that have been graded or need to be graded or are late. And you can even filter out on time. Okay. So that's how you do a Google Drive assignment. So just a couple notes of caution. Again, this is a kind of a special circumstance because I have all of my sections linked. I have my 6 sections linked. They're all right here in this one place. I just assigned this to all of them. Here's what you don't want to do with a Google Drive assignment. You don't want to do what you can do with some other things in your Schoology course, which is to come here and copy it to another course. All right. If you do that, because of the way Google Drive assignments work, it won't recognize the students that are in the other course, and so it won't assign the document. All right, so we want to make sure if you do want a Google Drive assignment to be copied to other courses, what you want to do instead is this. And again, let's say your sections aren't linked. I'll go into add assignment. Here's Google Drive assignment 2. All right, I can give them instructions. But what I don't want to do yet is click on Google Drive assignments. Okay, I'm not going to click on that. I'm not going to attach a document yet. I just want to create the assignment. I want to give the instructions, give it a grading category, and so on and so forth. And right here, I can copy to other courses. So let's say I want to put it in my chemistry class, section 1, and my chemistry class, section 2. Okay, so I've selected both of those. All right, so now I've created my assignment. Here's Google Drive assignment 2. Now, the only thing left that I need to do is come into each one of these assignments and whoops, sorry about that. I need to edit the assignment. And I need to now add the Google Drive Google Doc. Okay, so let's say I'm going down here to annotating in Schoology. That's my document I want to attach, and I can save my changes. So now that's all set. The other thing I need to do is I need to go to my other courses that I copied this assignment to And here's my Google Drive assignment 2. I need to edit that again, go to Google Drive assignments, and select my document again. All right. And again, if you remember, I copied that to 2 of my chemistry classes. So I need to go back to my courses, find my other chemistry class, and one more time, I need to click edit and add my document. All right, so just something that we've learned from some of the problems that teachers have run into in creating assignments. Once you've created the Google assignment and you've attached a Google Doc, you can't copy it to other classes that are not linked. Okay, so hopefully that'll save you a little bit of trouble in the long run, and you won't run into the problems that some of the other teachers have run into in that regard. All right, so let me stop the recording now, and then we'll see what questions people have next.
So is there a way we could filter all the assignments